Hello, it's time for another episode of Discipleship Today. My name is Bob Benson. I pastor Christ Lutheran Church, and our address is in Bemis Point, but we're actually in Greenhurst, right across from the park in Ellery Town Park. We've been talking about what it takes to be a disciple, and I've just come to the point where I'm looking at Christ's life. When Christ first called his disciples, he just said, "Follow me." And it's interesting, these humble fishermen that he was calling in this first group responded by leaving everything. They left their possessions and even their families to follow him. We find that recorded in the Gospels, and I'm specifically referring to the Gospel of Luke, or Matthew and Luke. And in Luke it says, it uses the phrase, it says there, that they forsook all as they began their journey with Jesus Christ. The word forsake literally means that they turned their back on their former lives. I think that that's what Jesus expects from us. As we get saved, that we turn our lives around. We upend everything to follow him. It implies that there's a choice to be made and then a devotion to that choice, a devotion to Jesus Christ. It wasn't a part-time project for them where they could imagine doing this for just a short period of time and then going back to their lives. This was a promise to complete the course and finish their assignment. They agreed to follow Jesus. They consented to be his students and his learners in the rabbinical method and school of discipleship. They recognized him as their teacher and leader, and they made a commitment and followed him to be his disciples. So what does it mean to you to follow Jesus? Are you ready to upend your life to follow him, to become a disciple, to turn your back on your former life and follow him? It's interesting to me. The first directive that he gives Peter in his life is follow me. And then the last thing he says to Peter personally, in John 21:22, he says again to him, just before he's crucified, follow me. And it's interesting. Those two phrases in those two places are completely different phrases recorded in the Greek. They seem identical, but they're quite different. These two distinct phrases, and Peter understood the difference. Christ's command to follow him in Matthew 4 was forcefully and persuasive. Peter and the other fishermen understood what it meant. They meant that the Lord was powerfully directing Peter and the other disciples to become his students. The Lord's last directive to Peter seemed to be more of a request or a plea. Jesus had just finished that important conversation with this fisherman who was a character, who was impetuous. And Christ had asked Peter 3 times if he loved him in that discourse. Peter got kind of frustrated with Jesus keep asking him, do you love me? And that motivated this confrontation, this personal conversation, coming to its conclusion where Peter turned around and saw the Apostle John and said, what about him? He was focused on somebody else following Jesus. And Jesus brought him back and said, no, don't worry about anybody else. Follow me. And I think that's key for us. We can't worry about other people. We've got to be committed in our hearts to really following Jesus Christ ourselves, keeping our walk looking the way he wants it to look. We want to do the best we can to be his disciples and to be disciple makers. So for Discipleship Today, I would encourage you to follow Jesus the best that you can. Thank you for taking the time to watch today.